Fantasy football isn't won by memorizing rankings. It's won by understanding opportunity. And opportunity starts with the environment. Before you learn rankings, learn the environment. This is the fantasy football ecosystem. Know the environment. Draft better.
The fantasy football ecosystem. I'm JW. Before you learn rankings, learn the environment. For the final episode of this series, we'll cover the NFC West, which is a division that looks easier on ranking sheets than it does when you're drafting. Although there are several players near the top where the decision is simple, the hard part comes after that. You start paying meaningful prices for projected roles, injury recoveries, changing target trees, and backfields that are not as settled as the rankings make them look. That is where I want to spend our time. The goal is not to replace the rankings you already have. The rankings give us the forecast. The ecosystem gives us the framework for using it. So let's build the ecosystem. At the division level, I see two offenses where I mostly trust the structure, and two where I need more price discipline. The Rams are still a Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford offense. The top of that environment is easy to understand. The question is how much of the running back workload we should still project to Kyren Williams. Seattle is also strong. The defending champions kept the quarterback, offensive line, and their best receiver. But they did change play callers and rebuild a backfield around a rookie while Zach Charbonnet continues to recover. San Francisco still gives us the Shanahan system and Brock Purdy. The problem is the people around him. The receiving core has changed dramatically. George Kittle is working back from an Achilles tear, and Christian McCaffrey is dealing with camp soreness. Arizona is the biggest reset. They got a new head coach, new starting quarterback, and new offensive structure. And the most expensive back in the room has the highest upside, but not the cleanest current role. Two environments I mostly trust. Two where I want the price to do more of the work. Arizona is no longer the Kyler Murray offense. Mike LaFleur is the new head coach, Jacoby Brissett is the intended starter, and the offense is being rebuilt around a different quarterback and a different structure. The passing game has established talent, and so does the backfield. The problem is we do not yet know exactly how that backfield will divide. The core is still Trey McBride. He's the cleanest part of the offense. Jeremiah Love is the player Arizona drafted to eventually become the center of the running game, and McBride gives Brissett an established target. Love gives LaFleur the explosive back he can build around. The important word with Love is eventually. The fantasy market is already pricing a larger role. The current backfield has not fully given it to him. LaFleur matters because this is his offense. Nathaniel Hackett is the coordinator, but LaFleur is calling the plays. LaFleur has also compared Michael Wilson's intended role to Puka Nacua's role from his Rams offense and Marvin Harrison Jr.'s to the Devontae Adams role. I would not turn that into target projections, but it tells us Wilson is part of the design, not just whatever is left after Harrison and McBride. Trey McBride is drafted with confidence. The role is established. The player is established. Nothing about the quarterback change makes me want to invent a reason to move away from an elite tight end. You're paying a premium price for a role that does already exist. Well, Jeremiah Love is drafted with a price check. This is the most important Arizona decision. The Cardinals did not use the third overall pick on Love to keep him in a permanent committee. Long term, I expect him to lead that backfield. That is not the same thing as saying he owns it today. Tyler Algier has received meaningful top team work. James Conner is still working back, and Trey Benson has had more knee trouble. Love has a high ankle sprain. He is unlikely to play again this preseason, and Arizona is hopeful he can return for week 1. So you're buying the most talented back in the room and the best chance to eventually control it. What you do not know is how fast that happens, how much Algier plays, or whether Love's ankle changes the early season plan. That is too much uncertainty for me to pay as though the workload is already settled. If the price lets me survive a shared start and still win if Love takes over later, I'm very interested. If I have to pay for the takeover now, I'm less comfortable with that decision. Marvin Harrison Jr. is drafted with a price check. His price is no longer asking us to draft the perfect version of the breakout. The role should be important, but we are changing quarterbacks in the offense at the same time. Michael Wilson's emergence matters and Trey McBride is not going anywhere. The question is how concentrated the passing game becomes around Harrison. At a middle draft receiver price, I can take that bet. I just do not want to pay as though the target monopoly has already happened. Michael Wilson would be considered late. This is the cheaper way into the passing game. His finish to last season showed he can handle real volume, and LaFleur has identified a meaningful role for him. He does not pass Harrison or McBride. He does need to be a clear third part of a productive target structure. That's a reasonable bet late in the draft. Tyler Algier is considered late. He has stayed involved with the top backs, and Arizona has not treated him like a player who disappears because Love arrived. If Love takes over quickly, Algier becomes difficult to start. If the rookie is eased in or the ankle lingers, Algier can have immediate usable volume, which is enough for a late-round pick. Jacoby Brissett is waiver watched in a normal league. He matters because he controls the environment, not because I need to draft him. James Conner and Trey Benson are waiver watch for me right now. They are passed back to relevance, but I do not need to spend draft capital guessing which one earns the leftover work. Arizona has enough opportunity to create several fantasy starters. The concentration is only moderate because the passing game has 3 legitimate targets and the backfield can use several different players. That pushes the risk high. The upside is high because Love can eventually become a featured back and Harrison still has another level available to him. This is not an offense I would necessarily avoid, but it is an offense where I want uncertainty to reflect its price. The memory hook for the draft is Arizona is where I draft the role I can see, not the takeover I'm being asked to project. This is one of the easier environments in the division. Matthew Stafford is back and Sean McVay is still calling the offense. Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams give him 2 established receivers. The Rams have shown they can use multiple running backs and tight end packages without losing their identity. The structure is not in question. The question is how concentrated the touches remain. Stafford organizes the offense, Puka is the passing game centerpiece, Kyren Williams remains the first running back. The difference now is that I no longer assume Kyren has to own almost every meaningful backfield touch for this offense to work. Nate Scheelhaase is the new offensive coordinator, but that does not mean we have a new play-calling system. McVay has said he is keeping the play-calling duties. I'm not applying a coordinator change discount to the Rams. The continuity is one of the reasons I'm comfortable paying for the top players. Puka Nacua is drafted with confidence. He's dealing with psoas soreness, but McVay expects him back and ready to go. Unless that changes, the environment gives me no reason to move off of him. He is the focal point of a proven passing offense with Stafford back. Do not manufacture a large concern than the team is describing. Adams is drafted with confidence. The age is real. Puka is the first name in the passing game, but Adams does not need to lead the Rams in targets just to justify his current price. He has touchdown access and Stafford trusts him. The offense can support 2 receivers. I am drafting a very good second option in a very good offense. Kyren Williams is drafted with a price check. The role is real. The part I am checking is the size of it. Kyren and Blake Corum combined for almost 2,000 rushing yards last year. Corum has continued to look explosive in camp, and McVay is clearly comfortable giving the second back real work. With Kyren, I am buying the first back in a high-scoring offense with receiving ability and touchdown access. I'm no longer buying a guarantee that he dominates the entire backfield. If the market changes for any efficient lead back, I am fine. If it changes for the old volume ceiling, I would rather take a different profile. Blake Corum is considered late. He already showed the role can exist next to Kyren. He does not need an injury to touch the ball. But an injury would simply turn an existing role into a large one. That gives me 2 paths to value from a later running back. Stafford is considered late. He just won the MVP and the passing environment is excellent. The reason I'm not aggressive is positional. In a 1-quarterback league, I could definitely wait. Stafford can absolutely be the better answer if I do. The Rams have high opportunity and fairly concentrated fantasy production. The top players are easy to identify. The risk is lower than most of the division, but the backfield distribution keeps it from disappearing. The upside remains high because this offense does not need a major projection to score points. The memory hook for the draft is trust the Rams offense and price their backfield. For the San Francisco 49ers, the basic attraction has not changed. Shanahan still drives this offense while Brock Purdy is the quarterback. Christian McCaffrey forces the defense to account for an entire field. The target tree has been rebuilt. Ricky Pearsall is out for the season, and Brandon Ayuk remains on the reserve left squad list. Mike Evans was added, and Deebo Samuel is back. Christian Kirk has been dealing with a calf issue, and George Kittle is still on the PUP after the Achilles tear from January. That is a lot of movement inside an offense we normally think we understand. McCaffrey and Purdy are still the centerpieces. When Kittle is healthy, he is part of that core too. That is why I'm not treating the receiver issues as a reason to fade the entire offense. The system still creates very useful touches. The question is who earns enough of them. Clay Kubiak remains the offensive coordinator, but Shanahan remains the regular season play caller and the primary offensive driver. There is no philosophical reset here. The change is personnel availability, not offensive identity. Christian McCaffrey is drafted with confidence. He has missed recent camp practices with soreness. That matters because the player and the price. It does not currently redefine his role. If he's healthy for week 1, he is still the centerpiece of this offense and one of the few backs who can win through both rushing and receiving volume. Mike Evans is drafted with a price check. He came to San Francisco with an obvious outside and red zone role. Then Pearsall was lost. Ayuk remained unavailable, and the rest of the receiver room started dealing with small injuries. Evans returned to teamwork after a quad issue. The 49ers are still managing some lower body tightness. You're buying a starting perimeter receiver with touchdown access and a proven offense. The check is age, health, and how much volume this offense actually sends to one receiver once Deebo and Kittle are involved. The current middle price is reasonable. I would not keep pushing him upward because the depth chart looks thin in August. The opportunity improved. The player did not suddenly become younger. George Kittle is drafted with a price check. This is an injury price decision. Kittle is still on PUP after tearing his Achilles in January. He is targeting week 1. If he gets there and looks like himself, the depleted receiver room can improve his target environment. But I'm not waving away an Achilles recovery for a tight end whose game depends on explosion in yards after his catch. I'm interested because the market has moved him way down. The price still has to acknowledge that I may not get full Kittle immediately. If he comes off the PUP and practices fully before you can draft, I become a lot more aggressive. Deebo Samuel is considered late. The fit is easy because he knows this offense. The available touches are interesting because Pearsall is gone and Ayuk is unavailable. The question is what version of Deebo are we getting and how Shanahan divides the specialty touches now. At a cheap price, I could draft the possibility that familiarity plus opportunity creates one more useful season. I would not pay for the old peak role. Deshaun Stribling is considered late. The rookie has flashed, returned from his hamstring issue, and produced in the preseason opener. More importantly, the depth chart in front of him has lost players. That gives him legitimate paths to snaps. I still have Evans, Deebo, and eventually Kittle ahead of him for design touches. So this is a late upside bet, not a breakout I want to price in the now. Brock Purdy will be considered late. The system keeps his weekly efficiency attractive. The concern is that the pass catching group may be less stable early than the name value suggests. If I wait at quarterback, Purdy is completely reasonable. I do not need to force the pick in a normal league. Christian Kirk is a waiver wire watch. The calf issue and crowded veteran mix make it hard to identify him as a weekly draftable role. San Francisco still has high opportunity because the system creates it. The concentration is lower than usual outside McCaffrey. Risk is high because several players are returning from major injury, managing injury, or entering into new roles. The upside stays high because if Kittle returns on schedule and the veteran receivers hold up, the offense can become much cleaner quickly. Your memory hook for the draft is that Shanahan environment is still valuable, but do not pay as though the health and target tree are already settled. For the last ecosystem in this series, we'll cover the Seattle Seahawks. Seattle does not need to reinvent itself. Sam Darnold is back, JSN is back, all 5 starting offensive linemen are back, and new coordinator Brian Fleury is trying to preserve what worked rather than installing something unrelated. The major change is the backfield. Kenneth Walker is gone. Charbonnet is recovering from a torn ACL, and first-round rookie Jadarian Price has a chance to walk directly into meaningful work. This is where most of the draft decision lives. JSN is a clear passing game core. He led the league in receiving yards last year, and is now being drafted like the elite receiver he became. I do not need to fight that. Darnold keeps the passing structure stable. Price has the opportunity to become the new backfield core, but that part still has to be earned. Brian Fleury matters because this is his first season as an NFL offensive play caller. That adds some uncertainty. What makes it manageable is that he came from the Shanahan tree and has talked about maintaining the successful elements of Seattle's offense. So I am applying some uncertainty. I am not treating Seattle as a complete scheme reset. JSN is drafted with confidence. The market has already recognized the breakout, but that's fine. The quarterback is the same, the line is intact, and nothing in this offseason suggests Seattle wants to make the offense less centered on its best receiver. At an elite price, I will still need elite production. The environment gives me no reason to project a role reduction just to be a contrarian. Jadarian Price is drafted with a price check. This is the Seattle decision I care most about. Walker left, Charbonnet is recovering from the ACL tear, and open camp on PUP. Seattle then used a first-round pick on Price. The opportunity is obvious. Price has also shown receiving ability in camp, which helps because a rookie back is easier to trust if he does not have to leave the field in passing situations. But open opportunity is not guaranteed volume. George Halani and Emmanuel Wilson are still in the room. Charbonnet is expected back at some point, and Price has not played a regular season NFL snap. You are buying the favorite to lead a good offense's backfield early. What you do not know is how complete that role is, what happens when Charbonnet returns, and whether Fleury distributes the run game the same way his predecessor did. At a middle price, I can accept that. If the market drafts Price as though Charbonnet no longer exists, I'm out. Charbonnet is drafted with a price check. The price is cheaper, the uncertainty is much higher. He tore the ACL in the playoffs and did not have surgery until February. Mike McDonald has said he is not expected to miss the whole season, but an early return has never been something I want to assume. That means you're drafting a roster management problem before you're drafting a running back. If the price stays late and I can hold him, I understand it. We already know he can handle meaningful work. I do not want to pay enough that I need production before we know when he is returning. Rashid Shaheed is considered late. He gives Seattle speed and explosive playability that the rest of the receiver room does not duplicate. JSN will still dominate attention and targets. That is fine. Shaheed does not need 8 catches a week at a late price. He needs consistent routes and enough downfield opportunities to create spike weeks. Kupp is considered late. I'm not drafting the old target monster, but I am drafting a cheap veteran and a good offense who can still earn useful work. His 2025 season already showed us that JSN is the center of the passing game, but if Kupp stays healthy, there's enough underneath volume to help. If the price rises because of the name, I'm not following it. AJ Barner is waiver watch. He caught 6 touchdowns last year, and Fleury's tight end background is interesting. But Seattle also has Elijah Arroyo, and I would rather see Barner's usage than force him onto the draft board. Sam Darnold will stay a waiver watch in a normal league. He can be useful during the season without being a quarterback I need to draft. Seattle has high opportunity in one of the cleaner top-end target structures in this division. The passing concentration is high because of JSN. The backfield concentration is still developing. That keeps overall risk in the middle. The upside is high because Price can inherit a valuable role, and the passing game already proved it can support elite production. Your memory hook for the draft is trust the Seattle offense and make the rookie earn the workload you are paying for. The NFC West has a lot of good fantasy players. That is not the hard part. The hard part is separating established opportunity from opportunity the market is already projecting. Arizona is that clearest example, where McBride is established and Love is projected. Harrison has a real role, but the passing game may be less concentrated than his name suggests. The Rams are the environment I trust most structurally. Puka and Adams are easy to understand. Kyron is still valuable, but Corum has done enough that I no longer draft Kyron as though a second back is theoretical. San Francisco still has the system. The price checks are about health and target allocation. McCaffrey is still the centerpiece, and after that, I want discounts for Kittle's recovery and that changing receiver room. Seattle is strong and mostly stable, where JSN is already the star. The decision is how much certainty you buy with Price before we see the rookie workload, and how much patience you have with Charbonnet's return. Trust the environments that have already shown us what they are. Price the roles that are still being created, and when the market asks you to pay for the best case version of an uncertain situation, make sure you know what assumption you are buying. Well, that is the NFC West ecosystem and the conclusion of this series on the divisional ecosystems for this year's fantasy football season. We will continue to update you as we move towards the Super Bowl rematch between the Seattle Seahawks and the New England Patriots. Until then, use the rankings, know what's underneath them, and when two players are sitting next to each other on your board, use the environment to decide which uncertainty you actually want to buy. I'm JW, and remember, know the environment, draft better.